In the last episode, Nara, determined to find out the truth, traveled far for days with Farid. Aldrich the wise man welcomed them and advised them on how they can stop Lord Eramon from permanently taking over Nara's rightful throne. Nara must stop him from completing the ritual if she wanted to save her people. As they neared the entrance of the cavern, the air grew colder and the shadows seemed to lengthen. Nara could feel the presence of the ancient magic that lay within, pulsing like a heartbeat beneath the earth. This was it, the final step before she would face the oath. They stood before the dark, yawning mouth of the cavern, the entrance guarded by ancient stone statues, their faces twisted in eternal torment. Nara shivered, but she didn't turn back. She couldn't. "This is as far as I go," Farid said quietly, his voice tight with emotion. Nara turned to face him, her heart breaking at the sight of the pain in his eyes. She reached out, taking his hand and squeezing it gently. "Thank you, Farid, for everything." Farid's eyes softened, but there was a fierce resolve behind them. "Promise me you'll come back," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the wind. Nara swallowed hard. "I'll do everything I can." Farid pulled her into a tight embrace, holding her as if he could shield her from the darkness that awaited. "I love you, Nara," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "No matter what happens." Nara closed her eyes, her heart aching. "I love you too." With one last lingering glance, Nara stepped away and turned toward the cavern. The darkness seemed to swallow her whole as she crossed the threshold, her mind focused on one thing: stopping her uncle and saving her kingdom. As she descended into the depths of the cavern, the air grew heavier, and the walls seemed to close in around her. The further she went, the more oppressive the presence of the oath became, filling her with both dread and an intoxicating pull toward its power. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her feet. A deep, rumbling sound echoed through the cavern, and Nara's heart leaped into her throat. She knew this was it, the final trial. But what she didn't expect was the figure that emerged from the shadows ahead. It was Eramon, his eyes glowing with the dark magic of the oath. He had beaten her there. "Nara," he said, his voice cold and triumphant. "You're too late." Nara's blood ran cold as she realized the full weight of the battle she was about to face. Her uncle, armed with the power of the obsidian oath, stood between her and the fate of the kingdom, and she had no choice but to fight. Eramon stood tall, his once-aged form now radiating with unnatural energy. The glow of the obsidian oath pulsed through him, his eyes darkened with the sinister power he had taken for himself. Nara's heart pounded in her chest as she realized the gravity of the situation. She was no longer facing the man she had known her whole life, but something far more dangerous, twisted by the oath's magic. "Nara, did you truly believe you could stop me?" Eramon sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "This power is beyond anything you can comprehend. You should have stayed in your broken kingdom. Now it's too late." Nara clenched her fists, her fear mingling with anger. "You betrayed our family, our people. You killed my father, and for what? Power? This kingdom doesn't belong to you. It never did." Eramon's lips curled into a cold smile. "Your father was a fool, too weak to wield the true strength that comes with the throne. I, however, have embraced it. With the oath, I will be unstoppable. You, on the other hand, are just a crippled girl who never had a chance." Nara's heart surged with fury. She had been mocked, dismissed, and underestimated her entire life. But no longer. She had come this far, defied every obstacle, and she would not let Eramon's darkness consume her or her kingdom. "You're wrong," she said, her voice steady. "I'm more than you ever imagined." With that, Nara reached deep within herself, summoning the strength she knew was there, the courage that had carried her through every hardship. She could feel the faint presence of the obsidian oath calling to her, but she knew the danger of touching its power. Yet, if she didn't act quickly, Eramon would destroy everything. The cavern around them trembled, the very stones vibrating with the power coursing through Eramon. He raised his hand, dark tendrils of magic weaving together as he prepared to strike. "You are nothing, Nara," he spat, his voice twisted by the power of the oath. "I will wipe you from existence, and no one will remember your name." But before Eramon could unleash the full force of his attack, Nara closed her eyes and whispered a prayer to the spirits of her ancestors. She focused on the pure, untapped power of her royal bloodline, the strength that had been passed down through generations, untainted by greed or corruption. This is my kingdom. This is my destiny. And then, as if answering her call, a blinding light erupted from the cavern floor, illuminating the darkness. Nara gasped as she felt a surge of energy rush through her, not the dark and twisted magic of the oath, but something purer, older, a power connected to the very land itself, to her father's legacy. Eramon staggered back, his eyes widening in disbelief as the light surrounded Nara. What is this? Nara opened her eyes, and they blazed with the same light, a force beyond the obsidian oath. "You've forgotten, Eramon. The true strength of this kingdom isn't in the oath. It's in the people. It's in our history. And I won't let you destroy it." The light intensified, forming a protective barrier around Nara as Eramon screamed in fury. He hurled his dark magic toward her, but it dissolved upon contact with the light. Nara stepped forward, her resolve unshakable. She wasn't fighting just for herself. She was fighting for her father, for her people, for the kingdom. Eramon's attacks grew more frantic, more desperate. But with each step Nara took, his power seemed to wane. His body, once infused with the dark magic, began to tremble. The oath's power was unstable, slipping from his control. "No!" Eramon shrieked. "I will not be defeated by a child." But it was too late. Nara reached him, her hand outstretched as the light from within her overwhelmed the dark magic surrounding him. Eramon let out a final, agonized cry as the obsidian oath unraveled, the dark tendrils of power retreating into the earth, leaving him powerless, broken. Eramon collapsed to the ground, his face pale and gaunt. The magic had drained him, leaving him a shadow of his former self. Nara stood over him, her heart heavy but resolute. "This is the end, Eramon. You will never hurt anyone again." Tears of frustration and rage glistened in his eyes as he stared up at her, defeated. "You think you've won, Nara? You have no idea what you've unleashed." Nara frowned, but before she could respond, Eramon's body convulsed, and with a final gasp, he fell limp. The cavern grew eerily silent, the oppressive weight of the oath's magic fading away. Nara took a deep breath, her body trembling with exhaustion. She had done it. Eramon was gone. The obsidian oath had been stopped. But as she stood in the quiet aftermath, a strange sensation tugged at the edges of her mind. The power she had drawn on, the light that had saved her, it hadn't vanished. It was still within her, a quiet presence that felt both comforting and overwhelming. Farid's voice echoed in her mind. Promise me you'll come back. With a final glance at Eramon's lifeless form, Nara turned and began the long trek back to the cavern entrance, her heart heavy with the knowledge that her battle might not be over yet. When Nara emerged from the cavern, the cold mountain air hit her face, and she spotted Farid waiting anxiously at the entrance. The moment he saw her, his eyes filled with relief and he rushed forward, pulling her into a tight embrace. "You're alive," he breathed, his voice choked with emotion. "I was so afraid." Nara leaned into him, her body shaking as the weight of everything she had just faced crashed down on her. "It's over, Farid," she whispered. "Eramon is gone." Farid pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "But you look different. What happened?" Nara hesitated, the flicker of the power she had felt still humming beneath her skin. I'm not sure yet, but something has changed. I can feel it." Farid's brow furrowed with concern, but he didn't press her. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Nara smiled, grateful for his unwavering support. For now, the kingdom was safe, but deep down, she knew her journey was far from over. Something ancient had awakened, and its presence lingered within her. As Nara and Farid descended from the mountain, the weight of what had just transpired hung heavy in the air. Though Eramon was defeated, the kingdom's wounds ran deep, and the flickering power Nara had unleashed still coursed through her veins. She could feel it pulsing beneath her skin, a strange and ancient force that had saved her but now demanded her attention. They reached the valley at the base of the mountain just as dawn broke, casting a golden light across the horizon. The air was crisp and cool, but Nara's mind was racing. The victory over Eramon had not brought her the peace she had hoped for. Instead, it had raised questions about the power she had awakened and what it meant for her future. As they approached the outskirts of the kingdom, Farid glanced at her, his expression a mix of pride and worry. "Nara, I know you're carrying a heavy burden now, but you don't have to face it alone. We can figure this out together." Nara smiled faintly, grateful for his unwavering support. "I know, Farid. There's something inside me, something I don't understand. I can feel it calling, like it wants something from me. Maybe we should go see Aldrich again," Farid suggested. "He might know what's happening." Nara nodded. "You're right. Aldrich will know." When they reached the castle, the mood was somber. Word of Eramon's death had spread quickly, and though many were relieved, others were uneasy. The kingdom had suffered greatly under his brief, tyrannical rule, and the people were wary of what would come next. Aldrich was waiting for them in the great hall, his face grave. He looked at Nara with an unreadable expression, but his eyes flickered with understanding. "You've returned," he said, his voice quiet but laced with urgency. "And I see that the power has awakened within you." Nara swallowed, her heart pounding. "What is it, Aldrich? What have I done?" Aldrich stepped forward, his gaze piercing. "You have connected with something ancient, something that lies beneath the foundation of our world." The obsidian oath was not the only force at work in that cavern. There are older powers tied to the land itself, to the lineage of our royal family. Nara's breath caught in her throat. "But what does that mean for me? For the kingdoms?" Aldrich's face softened with sympathy. "It means you are now bound to this ancient power, Nara. You have become a vessel for the kingdom's true strength, and with it comes great responsibility. The magic within you is both a gift and a curse. It will protect the land, but it will also demand much from you. You must learn to control it, or it will consume you." Nara felt a wave of fear wash over her. The power inside her had saved her, but now it seemed more like a threat. "How do I control it? How do I make sure it doesn't take over?" Aldrich smiled faintly. "You are stronger than you know, Nara. You've already proven that. The key to mastering this power lies in balance, just as you did in the cavern. The magic is not inherently good or evil, but it can be swayed by your will. You must remain true to yourself, to the values that brought you here." Farid stepped closer, taking Nara's hand. "You're not alone in this. We'll face it together, just like we've faced everything else." Nara looked into his eyes, the fear in her heart slowly ebbing away. With Farid by her side, she felt a surge of hope. Perhaps she could learn to live with this power, to wield it for the good of the kingdom. But the journey ahead would be difficult, and she knew it wouldn't be without sacrifice. Days passed, and Nara dedicated herself to understanding the ancient magic she had awakened. Aldrich guided her, teaching her to channel the power in small, controlled ways. She began to see the beauty in it, the connection it gave her to the land, to her ancestors, to the very heart of the kingdom. Slowly, she learned to trust herself, to wield the magic without fear. Meanwhile, the kingdom began to heal. With Eramon gone and Nara stepping forward as the rightful heir, the people found hope again. They saw in her not just the princess who had been crippled by tragedy, but a strong and wise leader, someone who had faced unimaginable darkness and emerged victorious. One day, as Nara sat in the royal gardens with Farid, watching the sun set over the horizon, she felt a deep sense of peace. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid of the future. The power inside her no longer felt like a burden, but a part of who she was, an extension of her strength, her love for her people, and her dedication to protecting the kingdom. Farid turned to her, his eyes soft and full of love. "Nara, I know you've been through so much, but you've become everything this kingdom needs. You're not just a ruler. You're a beacon of hope." Nara smiled, her heart swelling with affection for him. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Farid. You believed in me when no one else did. You saw the person I could become." He leaned in closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And I always will. I love you, Nara." Nara's smile widened, her heart full. "I love you too, Farid." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the kingdom, Nara knew that their future, her future, was full of promise. She had faced the darkness, embraced the light, and now, with Farid by her side, she was ready to lead her people into a new era of peace and prosperity. The kingdom of Allura would thrive once more, and Nara, its rightful queen, would ensure that it did so with strength, compassion, and wisdom. The journey had been long and filled with pain, but she had found her place. She had found her power. And with it, she had found her destiny. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the last segment to this beautiful story, please drop a like on the video and leave a comment on your favorite part of the story, moral lessons, character arcs, and so on. Also share the story with your friends and family. It's been a long way getting here, and I really appreciate all of you who watched all the 2 parts of the story to the end. Thank you once again, and do subscribe to the channel so you won't miss out on our next story, and as always, do have a lovely day. Thank you.